Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome Joey Drolshagen to the podcast. Easy for me to say, right, Joey? Anyway, Joey's been named one of the top coaches in America over the past 3 years by NYC Journal and a few other publications. And you'll, as you get to know him a little bit, like I have, you'll see why. He brings a great energy and a great just passion for helping people to the table. And I've found our conversation to be very energizing and illuminating, especially as it relates to us developing and moving forward. So with no further ado, let's welcome Joey to the show. Welcome to the Eye of Power podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dardick. But this podcast is not about me. It's about you and your power. It's time to claim yours. The things that really attracted me to talk to you specifically, Joey, is first of all, the name of your company. It's freaking go time. I mean, that tells me a ton right there. We'll talk about branding. I mean, wow. And so
the reason that worked out like that, Tom, is like I started doing these works at 22 years old just to figure out my own life. You know, like back in the day, if something came easy to me, I felt like I didn't earn it or I didn't deserve it, you know, because it happened with ease and stuff. And it was just, and I took all that time and I built like career in corporate America and did all those things. And I know I needed to do those to be able to, serve the way I do today, but I didn't want to do it through that whole process there and that continued studying this pathway. So to finally come out a decade ago and actually be doing this work, it took a long time. So it was like it's freaking go time. I mean, that's literally how I came up with the name. It's time to quit playing small and it's time to quit wanting, but taking actions that are leading opposite from where I want and start stepping into.
You know, it's funny because when we use a word like playing small, which obviously we use that a lot in the development world, and what we mean is short shrifting yourself from your potential, right? Is that essentially what it is?
I know. I could not have said that better, Tom.
And so, and no matter who we are not at 100. Even the people that are at the top are not at 100, right? So to me, that means that we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, saying, okay, look, you're not where you could be that as it may. Where do you want to be? And let's go from here. And so there's a lot of times where we have to balance two seemingly contradictory notions. So you give yourself grace and say an acceptance and all this kind of, okay, I'm good the way I am and all this stuff. Right. Good. But you're really not good the way you are, because the whole point of life is to grow, develop, learn, do something you haven't done before, help somebody else who needs some help, get out of the chair and go do and use it or lose it. So the question that we both face pretty much as a full-time job of career calling is what gets in the way? What stops us? Why am I not where I want to be? What is that gap? So I've got a model here of that
I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically helping people see that part of themselves that is mysterious. I mean, if you want to get in shape, or you want to get healthier, it's not an intellectual thing as to what do I got to do, right? This is known stuff. So for those that are already off of their resolutions to be at the gym every day in an early part of the year, what gives? What's the problem? So that's what the Eye of Power is about. And it sounds to me like we're birds of a feather when we talk about it's freaking go time and some of the other things, the subconscious mindset training that you bring to the table. I really want to get into that. So I've talked enough. Basically my question through all of that, Joey, is what are the things that you see that you really, if you had that magic wand that you could just wave for people that would get them more towards that gap, more towards that not playing small, what would that be?
Man, that's a great question. There's numerous. The number one thing, though, Tom, would be an open mindset. So often all of us spend our time based on what we know, what we've experienced. Like I can't tell you how many people I talk to, and as I'm explaining the principles of SMT or mindset or subconscious mindset, whatever it is, and they I know, and as long as we know, we cannot go any further. We're stuck there. But if we can we all know things, right? If you're over 2 years old, you know things, right? And sometimes when we get into our teens, we know everything about everything. And then we get into our 20s and we realize, oh, maybe I didn't, but it's not about what we know. If we're not living the life we want to live, if we're not having the impact that we want to have, and we feel it's our purpose and things like that, if growing our business, whatever area of life it is, if we don't have the relationship that we truly desire to have, the finances, the freedom of time, if we're not hitting those, there's something we don't know that's going on causing that. So instead of I know, I'm being stuck there, what I tell people, an open mindset to me means, what can I add to what I already know? What am I missing? I work with people in recovery programs and things like that, and it's so many people recycle in there and they get help and then they go back out and they get help and they go back out. And what I always tell them when I'm talking with somebody like that is, don't look at what you know and what you relate to. Look for what you missed your other times around, because when you figure those things out, you won't ever have to use again. When you figure those things out, you can grow your business and scale it beyond belief. When you figure those things out, you can have and experience that love relationship. You can have that freedom of time and start fulfilling those items on your bucket list. But as long as you know, you're holding yourself short. So that would be the number one thing. The other thing that I would say is that go along with that is, when I work with clients, and I used to say this, I don't say it so much anymore, and I'll tell you why, is I used to say, if you want to get unrealistic results in your life. Now, anybody I talk to, Tom, when I ask them and I get into the guts of what is their vision, what is it they truly desire to experience in life, it's things that aren't realistic. I'm a kid that grew up in struggling blue collar family in Detroit, Michigan. The fact that I would go into, a vice president of sales, helping corporations, like millions and millions and millions of dollar corporations, go from bankruptcy to profitability, or helping clients go from $7.5 million to $23 million in a year in their business growth. The fact that I'm doing this, it's unrealistic based on that kid that grew up in that struggling family. It's when we step outside, and my clients as well, the client that went from 7.5 to $23 million in 12 calendar months and has been sustaining that upper level since that time, like 4 or 5 years now, that was unrealistic for them. I'll give you a good example. Is I worked with a guy who had a wholesale company, and, I do a lot of business. I do a lot of, it's all personal transformation. But for examples, he has a wholesale company over out of Ohio. And when I met him, he was doing about $34,000 a month. I think he had been in business like 3 or 5 years at the time. He was doing $34,000 a month. And all he wanted to get to was $50,000 a month, because at $50,000 a month, he could cover everything and start nickel and diming down that line of credit that he had built up, using it for the gap between the two. Mm-hmm. So when I talked to him about his vision, getting him to $75,000 a month was ridiculous. Ended up over time, over about a month, getting him to $150,000. And that was at the end of the year when we worked together 2 years ago. So I set it up for the vision to be January, February, and March, because those were the slowest months of his business. It's after the holidays, everything else. Right. So last January, February, and March, he did over $250,000 each of those months. That was unrealistic. He wouldn't even believe that was possible, that I got him to 150. And then he did that. So now he's going through last year and he's building the whole thing and everything else. He comes back to me in November and he said, man, I'm struggling. And I go, why? What's going on? He goes, I'm trying to get to 500,000 and I can't. And so now now he's moving into that. But that's exactly the human condition right there is, we achieve these visions. First off, if we allow ourselves to believe them, so often what we do is we look at our current situation, our situations, our past experiences, people will live off of experiences from that other people told them that they never even experienced firsthand, and it's part of their belief in that subconscious. And so what they do is they figure out what they want based on what they see around them right now or those experiences. So that's why he couldn't get beyond $50,000 in his belief of it being possible. It was unrealistic. So we have these unrealistic visions. Truly, when we get to our heart level, we have these unrealistic visions for what we want, but we want to live by taking realistic actions. Mm. And what happens is we try to strive for that realistic one. We put effort into it. We follow that old programming that you hear in so many coaching programs and such, that if you want something, you got to put massive action and exhaustive effort, and you got to trade off things in life and everything else. Right there pulls a lot of the excitement out of what we want. And so by the time you do it, and then somebody takes an action and it doesn't lead to $1 million overnight, they get discouraged. And then with that discouragement, they end up not only relaxing and living off of mediocre scraps of what they truly desire out of life, but they take it as something the matter with them on why they can't achieve that higher level of things. So ultimately, in doing all of that, to round it up, all of that stuff leads to more people will live with, that's impossible. If I tell somebody went from 7.5 to $23 million within a 12 calendar month, they'll tell me it's BS. Now I can put them on the phone to talk to that person and explain it. They still will not believe it. They'll think there's a trick to it or something in that and stuff. And it's only based on that subconscious conditioning.
Well, you just threw a whole lot of clay on the table there, Joey. That's for sure.
Sorry about that.
No, sorry. That's what we're here for. I'm loving every second of it. The thing that occurs to me as I listen to that wisdom is between the open mindset and the relationship between our unrealistic vision and our realistic aspect of what we're able to do, and all of that together. The word that really pops out to me is making sure that we need humility. Humility in the sense of what we really do understand, and then that also relates to our perspective. So, in other words, what I was thinking is, the older I get, the more I realize I need to be less declarative in conversations and more inquisitive. So, in other words, I need to be more in the question, less sharing, because the stereotypical thing is, the more you learn, okay, you've been through the ringer, and people are going to come to you because you're the wizened veteran and can share all the knowledge. And I do like to do that. I have a podcast. I try to share things that I've figured out, of course, but I'm learning that I'm way better off just asking questions. So, like, for instance, this interview format that I've gotten new for the first 70 plus episodes of my podcast, it was just me talking. Now it's these kinds of things more often where I get to ask questions, and I'll tell you what, I can just see the benefit very clearly, because I'm not sitting here trying to compare what my experience is or making sure people are hearing what I said. I'm trying to understand you, and I'm learning and growing and seeing things a different way, and sure. Hardly anything's new, but the subtleties give you clarity that you don't have. So when you talked about people say, I know, what they're discounting is the fact that you have a picture, but your picture is not the thing. Your picture is just a picture. And so when you have the habit of saying, no, I'm good with my picture, thank you.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways we cut ourselves off to power, because we're saying, okay, I've got 4 cards now in my hand and I'm playing Texas Hold'em. I don't need a 5th, I'm good. I got 2, that it's got to be draw. It can't be Texas Hold'em. So I got 4. I don't need a 5th. I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that, but we don't know we're doing it. So go ahead.
No, go on, Fisher.
Oh, I was just going to say, so what do you think that is? Why do you think people want to, especially somebody like, yourself, that come, let's say they've hired you to coach them, and you're telling them something and they're just going, example, you said, yeah, okay, I know. No. What do you think they're about there when they're doing that? What's in their mind?
Everything that I do relates back to subconscious mindset conditioning. All of it does. So we are conditioned. We go through school. Even as a younger child, you'll be 3, 4 years old and you'll do something. Parents will scold you and stuff like that. Why'd you do that? I don't know. Well, you have to know why you did that. And we go to school and you have to know that 2 + 2 = 4. And you have to know the presidents and you have to know this and you have to know. And we build a culture of people where we have to know. If you look at our culture in the United States, it's much more based on that you have to know the answers. Right. It's based on that, like in a lot of the stuff I grew up with, and I've experienced a lot of coaching, and a lot of it was, you have to figure it out. If you want to have success in life, then you have to figure it out what to do. And you have to figure out all the hows and put everything together. And you look at corporate America and the more conditioning that I've experienced for 28 years, it took me forever to break that. But when you look at that, you in sales, you do your 90-day, you do your 6-month, your 1-year projections, your 3-year, your 5-year, and your 10-year, and you put all these things together, and then you got to come up with action plans in case you run into something and don't hit what you're going to do. And you have to know every nook and cranny of that. And most people following that will never achieve the heights that they could when we get into alignment. And this is everything I work with, is we get into a vision, develop what I call a dynamic vision, and we get into alignment with that vision. And we let the how show us rather than us taking the ownership, taking the power, taking the control. And when we do that, we go right up here and live from our logical, strategic mind that's only as big as the distance between my 2 ears. And that's as much as I can ever get out of that. But when I open up to all that is, I refer to it as God in my life, but whatever it is, we get into it. Every single living, breathing person has experienced coincidences where something comes out of the blue and happens and they didn't do it. And all of a sudden it turns into this great outcome based on what happened there. And we call that every so often, but literally by reprogramming our subconscious, by getting into alignment, we can literally experience coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. It's almost as if designed. And that's when life starts getting easier. So one of the things I'll ask business owners, realtors that I work with right out of the chute when I'm doing a workshop is, do you believe that you can quadruple your business and at the same time have more freedom to do what you want to do in life? And everybody in that room will say no. And then I'll go through the process, of the presentation and the SMT method and why people think that way, and then how to open that up and the comfort zone and all the other details that build up into that. And at the end, I'll say, now, do you still believe it's impossible? And some of those people will say, not after hearing that. Mm-hmm. And what it is because with our conditioning, we have our comfort zone, right? And unrealistic results are outside of our comfort zone. And it has to be, because otherwise we'd already be experiencing it.
Right.
So anything that we desire that we haven't is outside of our comfort zone. And our subconscious programming and all that will literally lay out that pathway for the actions. The subconscious is what triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So as we're stepping into that and stepping outside of our comfort zone is uncomfortable and it's uncommon. And so we go back to our conditioning on the actions that we determined that we are going to take to bring about what we want to experience. And we do so with conditioning that's based on common actions that we've taken. It's impossible to get to uncommon results without taking uncommon actions. It's impossible to get unrealistic results without stepping outside of our comfort zone. And most people going it alone won't ever achieve the same level. And the reason I say that is because I work with a coach even now in my life. And the reason I do that is they help me run in to see where my subconscious is keeping me on that common zone. And so I can do something about that, shift that, and get back into that place. A couple of years ago, I took up hang gliding and have taken 7 runs off of a 2,000-foot mountaintop with strapped to a hang glider. The only reason I did that is because it scared the heck out of me. But the main reason I did it, Tom, is because I've always wanted to experience soaring like an eagle.
Yeah.
And I went and got my pilot's license in my 20s and that there 30s, and that didn't get it. And I've tried different this here the first time, but this here brings about that experience. Like I literally feel like I'm soaring.
You're talking me into trying it.
That first run off of that mountaintop, man, everything inside of me was saying, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go. Don't do it. And, and it was getting louder and louder. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. But the moment my feet left the ground, it all went away. And it was just soaring. I mean, it feels so beautiful and so light and so exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Wow. I mean, in the eye of power model, what you were pointing to there is what I call the pain quadrant, which is, let me see if I can get my situation. There we go, right there. That's the pain quadrant right up here. And what I mean by that is it's our relationship with pain that determines how we are going to exert ourselves, what actions we're willing to take on our own behalf. And you gave an example where you had the fear, your feet didn't want to leave the ground, or, we've never done something before, so it feels uncomfortable. We were afraid of looking silly. And I think one answer to the question I was asking earlier about what gets in the way might be that when I say, I know, when you're trying to tell me something, is I don't want to look like I don't already know that, because I don't want to look foolish, right? So I have this fear of seeming less than, or whatever that might be.
Sure.
But it's our relationship to, because what is fear? I mean, it's there for a reason, right? Without it, we're screwed. So it's not like like everything that happens to us has a rationale, right? Nothing is accidental. And every aspect of ourselves is well thought out, right? It wouldn't persist if it wasn't useful. So, but having said that, when we, just like everything, if it masters us versus it's a tyrannical master versus a wonderful servant. So it's our relationship with that. So you had the ability to leave the ground, to take that leap of faith, let the air fill the wings, and put yourself in that transformative state. And then you find out the fear was, what was the fear? The fear was, it was there for a reason, right? If you jumped off that cliff without the hang glider, you're screwed, right? Or something goes wrong, right? There are things to be afraid of. So the fear is not there for nothing, but you can get past it because you say, wait a minute here. There's a risk. There's a risk when I get up out of my chair, I could fall and hit my head, So what's that risk relative to everything else? And now you're in the driver's seat and making choices that give you your agency.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
There's a lot of acronyms for fear. My favorite one is false evidence appearing real. We don't even experience it, but we're afraid to take the action because of it. And so that's part of the whole thing. And so when I said that, you're absolutely right. Thanks for bringing that back around to that, because ultimately, if I had to answer in one word answer the question you had asked me prior, as far as what stops people, things like that and stuff, fear is. And then you were talking about pain, which I love discussing, because pain is a great motivator.
Pain's our friend.
Well, it is. Okay, so pain is a great motivator. Pain will push us to take actions, right? We lose a job, we're afraid of losing our house, and this and that will push us to go out and get another job. But we didn't like where we were working anyways, and we wouldn't have changed that until it was brought upon by us through pain. I have seen people who were pushed into retirement from companies as they get close to bankruptcy, and they start taking some of the people and moving them, retiring them and things like that, and just scared out of his mind. And 3 weeks later, I talked to him, and they say, "Man, every day is like a Saturday." And what happened is they got pushed into that position, and then they start seeing how that can work out. So pain is a great motivator. Pain of addiction, people living in addiction and things like that, or misery or bad marriages, whatever it is, struggling financially, that pain can motivate them to move them forward. In doing things the right way, or one of the ways of doing things, is you can have a vision that will pull you into what you desire, rather than being pushed by pain. It's a lot easier, more comfortable, enjoyable, and really a much more exciting way to live life.
I see that, Joey. I see that as a little further up. So um, Ken Wilber, he put out the concept of spiral dynamics. I don't know if I use that all the time. I don't know if it comes up in your conversations, but the basic idea of spiral dynamics is that things tend to roll out in levels, and progress is not really straight up, right? It tends to go up and both up and down, but if you keep on it, you can sort of notice that you're making constant progress up. And you have to sort out the issues at one level before you're going to be able to stay at the higher level up. Like I use example of, if I'm not showing up for work reliably, I'm not going to worry too much about, my phone manner, right? It's like you got to get number one before number two is going to matter, right?
Right.
So it's stuff like that. So the idea there is that that level one is that sort of pain aversion to pain. That's the universal, right? I'm not going to tolerate, my hand getting hurt unless there's something way wrong. But that's a more of a lower sort of level response. And what you were just pointing to is, it seems to me, is a more evolved learn. Like if I learn enough, then I have enough of a view of the future, view of what's possible, to be able to actually have that foothold, to actually be motivated by the potential carrot and not the stick.
Enough pain will motivate us into a vision. When people come to me, they don't come to me because their business is on top and they love that they're they want to be $100 million organization and they're a $200,000 organization. They don't come to me because they're excited that their life is like that. They come to me because they've tried everything they can do and they're wondering if they're even as realtors come to me a lot. I don't even know if I should stay in real estate and stuff. I love real estate, but I can't live like this. I can't, I don't get a retirement, all the things with it and stuff like that. It feels like it's, businesses, either I'm doing, either way, I'm working 90 hours a week, right? Whether business is coming in strong and forcing it, or whether there's no business, I'm trying to get it. So that pain of living that way is what brings most people to me. But right in conjunction with, I understand what you're saying about being another level, and it is looking, depending on how you look at it. But that vision is a door opener into what we truly want. So our pain can push us into that. I talked about being open-minded. Our pain can push us to be open-minded. When I'm talking to somebody who's got an addiction problem and they go from the point of that pain of being in the addiction and living that way, will push them to say, man, I don't know what to do. And that's what when somebody comes to me, Tom, and they say, man, here's all the things I've tried, none of them worked, I don't know what to do. That's an open mind right there. That means that pain has led them to a level of discomfort enough that they get through that, at least enough to develop, to come up with, determine that I can help them develop that vision, that dynamic vision. And then from there, we start stepping into the vision, and the subconscious conditioning is going to pop. It has to pop up, whether it's fear, whether it's uncomfortableness, whether it's, the experiences of the past, where they grew up, whatever it is, what's in the bank account, whatever it is, has to come up and bump up against it. So then we can shift that, identify it, shift it, and start moving forward into allowing for more expansiveness to happen in our life. And it can happen relatively quickly. Pain for a long time was my motivator into what I do today.
That's to me, that's an inspirational thought, because, everybody to some degree has some sort of pain. It's a, very rare time in our life where we can't point to anything that's not bothering us in some way, fashion, or form. And what I take from what you just shared there, Joey, is that we can lean into that and become more open, and then unfold a part of our life that would otherwise have remained closed.
What's really cool about that is it doesn't have to get to the kind of pain, the level of the pain we feel. We can take care of it when it shows up as a discontent. Yeah. Man, this is a third year in a row my business has been at, $500,000, let's say. And God, I really would like to see it at a $10 million business, and just that discontent can be that driver. It doesn't have to be the level of pain where it's life-threatening or things like that for us to do something about it.
a favorite quote of mine is our life conditions are precise functions of what we're willing to tolerate.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I remember early on talking to somebody and they were talking to me and they said, I hope that you get so angry at the first sign of discontent, you stop living with it as long as you do. Part of my comfort zone used to be being comfortable with discontent. If things were too good, I felt uncomfortable. When I would get accolades, like when I got into sales, was a half chance, back in corporate days, because I said, man, I don't care what I do, but I never want to do sales, and then here I end up in sales and stuff. And I would get accolades in front of the whole organization and things like that. And, with these, and I would feel so uncomfortable doing that I almost didn't want to get the purchase orders for those because I was afraid of that happening.
Wow.
And it's that fear of success. It's fear of being who we truly are. Marianne Williamson, she has a quote that I absolutely love, and I never say it the way she does, but she says, powerlessness, being powerless isn't our real fear. Our real fear is how powerful we really are.
I remember that
and
one.
that taps into all of this stuff. And the other thing I'd really like to bring up, if we can segue just a little bit, Tom, that is, we hear so many things in books and programs and self-help things and podcasts and all these things of people telling us what we have to do. And I followed a lot of those things for a long time. And a lot of it just created more confusion for me. It wasn't until I started working with people, how I've modeled my coaching business after, is I don't know what's best for you, but I know how to help you figure that out and find that. So regardless of who says what or anything else, the problem with that is that kind of coaching breaks us out of the roadmap model, where I have your roadmap to success and all you got to do is do these things and it's a one size fit all and everybody does it. But we are all unique human beings with our own conditioning specific to us. I have 4 siblings, and when we talk about the stories growing up, everyone has the same story, but we all 5 have unique ways we discuss that story because we have our own conditioning. So we're trying to, even the conditioning of like a one size fit all for everything, but it's not. I'm also an ordained minister. I don't lead a church because I don't like the politics and stuff like that, after being in corporate for so long, but I'll deliver services. And I never stand up and tell people who God is. What I do and what my message is I want to inspire you to find and develop that God of your understanding and develop a relationship with him that works in your life and open that doorway. And some people call it universe and, universal or whatever it is, but just whatever that is, that to build that one-on-one relationship with that. I don't want to tell you to take these action steps and you'll get the success. Most people that follow that logic, less than 1% of those people following it ever achieve the level of success that it's promised or the person who put it together. So it's really helping people find their unique pathway to set up systems of accelerating habits that work for their uniqueness to bring about that growth they want to experience.
That what you just raised there, Joey, brings me to something that I didn't want to forget to talk about, which is in your material I was looking at, you emphasize the idea of discovering your superpower. So I wanted to hear you talk about that because it sounds related to what you were just pointing to there. Because I talk about it, but I just want to compare notes as to how we both use that term and that concept.
Yeah, when I talk about superpowers, I mean, for me, the way I look at that, the best way I can describe it is, you see people do social media lives, right? And you can tell they're not comfortable. They don't like what they're doing. They're not, they're not in that place where they're coming from being authentic or anything. They're pushing themselves to do it. You've seen videos like that?
Sure, of course.
How long do you watch those?
I've been a member of video.
Okay, so how long do you watch those people for typically, Tom?
It's not very engaging, right?
I almost feel bad for the person, and it's like, oh God, and I go, okay, now you've seen people who that camera turns on their life light.
Yeah.
They're home. And how long do you watch those for?
Oh, that you eat it up with a spoon.
then you end up going for what they're offering. And what's happening is one person is pushing themselves into doing some action because it supposedly will bring success. Mm-hmm. And then the other person is doing it mainly because they have such a passion for that. And it just it connects that way. So when we're doing all these actions that we don't like doing or things like that, that are pulling against us, how many people do you think that first person in that video who doesn't like to do it, how many people do you think they're going to attract out of doing their lives and stuff?
Yeah, the first example, not too many, right?
Versus maybe they find some other networking way of doing things and stuff like that. And they're around people where they do feel comfortable with the one-on-one engagement or things like that. And then the second person being in that place. So superpowers, more so what I do is align what you enjoy doing, because that's what lights you up. That's what turns all of us. That's what turns on that attraction factor. That's what brings people to us going, man, I want what you have. And so that's really what it is. And each of us has something unique. There can be multiple people, of course, who love, who love doing social media and do it really well and stuff. But overall in our life, it's unique to us on what those things are. So when we start honing in and finding out and forgetting what everybody else says we have to do, but really start zeroing in and bringing some laser focus into our vision, and then what feels good for us to do, what are those things that light us up? And then we find ways to do that more often. People will turn around their business and such so quickly in just doing those things.
I love your answer there. It's in harmony with how I talk about superpowers, but mine may be from a little bit more of a intellectual kind of a component aspect of it, whereas yours is really heartfelt and comes in like, just go where the energy is. And so I'm going to take that inspiration and maybe change the way I talk about it from now on. So thank you for that, because how I've always said is, look, we all have a unique set of gifts in the world, right? Like, you might not be the smartest, fastest, best looking, most engaged, but you've got a combination of skills and attributes that is only you. No one has that specific. So I think of it like a key. So you're like an individual key, and there's a lock that only you could unlock. And so to me, that's how we find purpose. That's how we find, and when I talk about superpowers, I'm saying, what are the things on that key that are going to unlock that lock? And that's sort of how I think about it. But you had it way more simplified, and just go where your heart is, go where you feel energized. I think that's maybe the way to get there.
Well, and that's what feels the best to do. So as we lean into it, I like that key and lock. I mean, as far as explaining it, because we are unique. You and I could do the exact same things, and some things you're going to get way more lit up about doing than I am, and other things I may be, and things like that. And if you had a third person, it'd be something different altogether. Sure. And the more you bring people, but what it is we live in this culture that's conditioned us that, you have to go out and get your answer. And this is where I differ from a lot of other coaching programs, where it's like, you have to, come to me, I have your answers. And the way I'm structured as an organization and a belief in how I've learned this stuff myself is to lay out the pathway for the individual on the journey to find their pathway. I never tell anybody what to do. I never tell them how to do it. I never tell them what they're going to get. All I know is when I lay out that journey and we get done working together, you're going to walk away achieving a level of success beyond what would be possible otherwise. And in doing so, it's going to be now you will have something that's replicatable for you, because it doesn't matter what adventure or what endeavor you apply it to, you have your roadmap and it's going to be unique to you. So I'll work with a lot of clients, and they'll achieve all this success, and their family, friends, people they know are going, man, show me what he showed you. And they'll do it, but it won't work for that next person. Right. And the reason it won't work for that next person is because they're trying to follow their roadmap. So it really is about so if you look at the whole chain of everything we talked about, right, it starts out with pain, right? Discomfort at best, discontent rather, something we're discontent with and we don't like. From there, you can go forward into developing a vision of what it is you truly want to desire in your life. And I call that dynamic vision. And I do have road mapping tools for that, but it's not road mapping tools to tell people what their vision is. It's road mapping tools to help them define it.
Yeah.
See, one of the things we want in this quick and ready world is we want quick answers, we want quick solutions, we want to move forward, and we want, all this unrealistic goals and everything, but we want it all quick and everything else. And for some of this stuff, now to take an organization from 7.5 to $23 million in 12 calendar months, that's a pretty huge leap.
That's quick.
But we have to do the work of defining our vision for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I lay out the road mapping tools to help do that. And then what we do is we start setting up developing the systems of accelerating habits, to doing the things we align with, to doing the thing that lights us up, that it turns on that attraction factor. And as we start doing those things, we start achieving more of those things coming up. And then identifying the subconscious conditioning that's working against us, so that we can shift that and get it into alignment, which is what I call total mindset alignment, and then go through that process. And as we're doing the whole thing, we're building our roadmap to understand like what our pathway, the individual unique pathway to success is. And there's a more involved in that, but just like as a quick run through of the whole thing, that's exactly the works I do and how I do it. And anybody could do this. Anybody could go out there with themselves and figure it out. I tell you the books I read, I tell you the coaching programs I took that I walked away from and learned stuff. And I can tell you the coaching programs I've taken that I walked away and my only thought was, man, I do not ever want to be that kind of a coach. And then I can tell you the programs that I've taken, Tom, that I've walked away from going, man, there must be something the matter with me that only stunted my growth going forward into it. Yeah. The only way I know to do that is to take 35, 37 years to get to the results of what my clients achieve in weeks today.
I'd say that's a pretty good, tight description of the value equation of your organization there, Joey. So for those that want to hear more, what would you suggest they do? Where would you send them?
I mean, anybody can look me up. I'm sure you have my name in the notes with the last name.
Yeah,
like
we'll put all that.
But anybody can look me up on any of social media or Google or things like that. It'll lead you to my website and stuff. And then anybody that wants to talk about this stuff, Tom, they can just, I purposely set up to my personal calendar a quick referencing people can go to. And you can go to coachwithjoey.com. coachwithjoey.com, and you can get a 15-minute time, put it on my calendar. We'll get on the phone. We'll have a one-on-one chat and talk about it and see if you think this stuff is BS, that's fine. If there's something we've talked about or you feel stuck in something and I can help you move beyond that. My whole purpose in doing this is to help, like my purpose of my life and my life works is to inspire, motivate, and lead millions of people to live better lives. And one of the things that's really exciting that's happening much sooner than I thought is we're getting ready to launch Life Ignited Institute, which the whole purpose is to certify other coaches that qualify in the SMT method. So that will expand my life works beyond my lifetime in doing that.
Talk about vision. That's awesome.
Yeah. And like I said, it's people showing up and things are happening with it outside of what I'm able to do from upstairs, in my own logical mind and stuff.
Right.
And that's the other thing, man, when we start getting into alignment with those coincidences, it's amazing how much further we can go into our potential. And I don't use potential a lot because it's been equated so often with work, effort. Right? To hit your potential, you got to take effort. And so I don't look so much about potential, but I look about our passion, and moving into that passion quickly and with ease and enjoyment.
I mean, we are energetic. It's all energy, right? So it's the direction and flow of energy. And so the passion is it means that the energy is flowing. So, it feels better, right? It's more powerful that way. So
yes,
absolutely. Yes. Well, I'll tell you what, I thank you so much for our discussion today, Joe. I've had a great time getting to know you a little bit here. And I think your approach is so much in harmony with what we talk about, the eye of power. So I imagine that people watching us and listening to us are going to probably like what it is you're been sharing with us. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely, Tom. I so much enjoyed getting this conversation with you and I, and just with the connection of the likenesses with us and stuff, and I so much appreciate what you do. And anybody listening to this podcast, like if you've gotten anything out of here, Tom is living through his heart by doing this, and truly a servant's heart, and the behind the scenes effort he puts out to get, like I know firsthand because I'm a guest here, and what you do to bring about people to have that impact on your audience, to give them information to help them change and stuff like that. If you've gotten anything out of this, tell somebody about it, or share this podcast with other people. None of us can get to that impact level we want to have with our life alone. And you listening to this, if this is something that resonates with you, maybe you're one of those people to help spread this message to others.
Thank you so much, Joey. Thank you so much, Joey. Just absolutely enjoyed having you on the show today. And I think we're going to be talking again soon. And I can't wait. Just as a matter of reviewing the show for people, what we talked about today, Joey laid out in response to my first question about what gets in the way of people. That's one of the things we really want to focus on in the Eye of Power. And he hit two things really strong: the open mindset, really being open, being in that question. It's not about what we know. It's about what we can add to what we know. And I think just a little bit of a slight focus like that, just a little change, can be super powerful. And I thought that was a great nugget. And the second thing, the notion about our idea about being unrealistic versus being realistic. And Joey was pointing to, we have these unrealistic visions of what's possible, but we apply a realistic set of actions to that. And so the realistic actions being something that is perhaps limiting, and the unrealistic is something that we put off. And so those two judgments, really, right? They're just judgments of what we see as being possible. And so connected with the open mindset and the ability to be creative in our vision, I think that's a very powerful way to look at it. To that, Joey attached the idea of our pain. And I love when he said our pain can push us to be open-minded. So those of you who are familiar with the Eye of Power, when I talk about pain, I think of it more as an ally, right? It has a bad connotation because it hurts. But without that, we end up in a lot of trouble. I very much invite you to reach out to Joey. Will do so myself, because I think what he brings to the table is super, super valuable. The idea of providing a roadmap and assistance to be on your journey, because your journey is yours. With the Eye of Power system, we're not telling you follow this particular road. It's keep these things in mind, look at these parts of yourself, do it with somebody else as you go down your road. And in that respect, Joey and I are in complete agreement and in complete harmony. So I think we're sort of the same philosophical stripe there. So it was very, very much, I feel very providential that we were able to be able to meet and talk with Joey Drolshagen today. So thank you so much. This has been the Eye of Power podcast with Tom Dardick. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd also like to thank my brother, Scott Dardick, for the music and his music production. If you'd like to reach me, simply email Tom at dardickcommunications.com.